Today I am going to meet with the fabulous Raw Food Romance, also known as Lissa Maris, and also known as my friend. And we're going to be talking about yin yoga and hand salads, which is pretty amazing because I made one of her hand salads last night in my dehydrator. I'm really excited about it. So I'm excited to have her on and talk about her contribution to the ultimate raw vegan bundle. I'm going to accept her right together. We make magic together.
Again.
Okay.
Back again.
Accepted.
Back again. Back again. Another live.
Another day, another live. Okay, yes. So listen, last night, some of you may have been there, and I made wraps with Lissa on live, and I would like to tell you how they went because the night is over. Okay, so the first thing is that someone had asked how many calories are in a wrap. So I made 3 wraps with the recipe because of the type of dehydrator I have, and Lissa's made 2 wraps. So with 3 wraps, it's 205 calories a piece, and with 2 wraps, it's 350 calories a piece. And then then I started I was entering in Chronometer, what would you enter in for sauces and stuff, right? Under 400 calories for the whole thing. So depending on what your calorie count is, what you're looking for, the wraps can be a really low calorie option, low fat, low calorie, but very satiating because there's a lot of fiber in them. So that is my thing. Now I will say that, and we can look at the wraps, we can go into the kitchen and look at them if you'd like, but if I were to, the next time I do it, I'm going to make sure that there is more in the middle than on the sides, because the middle was a little hard to get off on my dehydrator without ripping it. And I did rip one in the middle.
Be because
it wasn't
fully dry yet.
Oh, you think so? Because it seemed like to me it was maybe too dry.
I told you to watch.
Girl, I went to sleep.
Because in the video, so this is why I say that, because in the video I show you have to push on it, and even though it feels dry on the top, it's not fully dry on the bottom in certain areas. So as soon as if you push on it and it's got any little tiny bit of give, which is typically in the center, you need to leave it in for another 2 or 3 hours or more. It depends on that, because you need it to be there should be no indentations on the entire wrap before you peel it off, because once you peel it off, it starts to dry and get harder. So I recommend only peeling it off the tray when you're ready to make the wrap.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I hear that. I hear that. But my other thing is that it was thin in the middle. I could see through it in parts. So I feel like still though I could have.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I really like to use the offset spatula, because it makes it totally even over the entire tray. So that's a bonus too for people. If you want to spread it really super even and get the best results, the offset spatula, or any you could use anything. You could use a cutting board and just scrape it. That guy who makes the chocolate decorations, and he uses
everyone knows him.
Yeah.
The guy is insane. That guy is insane. Yeah. So anyhow, but they look really tasty. I'm excited to have them for lunch today. I'm going to be using some lettuce from our garden, and it's great because I'm having a party at my house today for graduates of my in-person yoga teacher training here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so I needed an easy lunch, and this is going to be great because otherwise I would probably just eat potato chips, if I'm going to be really honest.
I mean, so, hey, you're honest, and that's we value authenticity, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I'm a person who works really hard and I get really focused. But what I haven't done as effectively as I see you doing is self-care. Like, I sacrifice my self-care for others. And I get in these like one track focuses where I'm like very much in, you know, what they call like the zone, the flow. That's what it's called when you're in a flow. And I get in flow and I could literally sit down and work for like 16, 17 hours and not even get up.
I definitely can do that easily.
Yeah. And if I don't have food like pre-made and ready to go, I don't want to interrupt my flow. So I'll just like be like, Larabar, you know?
Yeah, and the wrap, like, for example, last night when you were making the wrap, Nate and I were like, we need to make the wraps so that because when we make the wraps, we've got enough for lunch the next day and the day after, because we make two, right? And we each have half or whatever. But the interesting thing is last night we didn't make the wraps. And today we got up and we're like, oh, it only takes like, you know, a handful of minutes to make the wraps. And we could have done it last night, but we didn't. The thing is, though, that everything's working out just as planned anyways, because at lunch today, actually at 1 p.m. today, Nate and I are making the tomato rice and beans recipe from the Make It Raw that's in the bundle that you guys can get. Go to Angelica's link in her bio and buy the bundle so that you can get all the recipes. But we're going to be making the rice and beans, so we're like, oh, well, we don't really need a lunch today because we'll just eat the rice and beans, made raw, by the way. But the cool thing is, too, tomorrow we're going live at 2 o'clock and we're going to be wrapping wraps for our hike on Sunday. So it's perfect. It ended up being perfect because tonight we'll make the wraps for tomorrow's food prep.
Wraps,
oh my God,
are great for a hike. Somebody had a question that I just want to answer here. Can someone create a raw wrap without cracked edges, without the silicone molds, with walls at the edges?
You don't need the special trays. The thing is with the special trays, and what we were talking about earlier, was the special trays actually, because they're lifted, they allow you to have the exact, pretty much the exact amount all across the whole wrap. So you get a very uniform wrap. And the trays are cheap. You get, like, depending on your dehydrator, they're like,
mine was
I paid $11 for 4.
free.
And Nate and I bought, we have 16 of them because we have 2 dehydrators. But the thing is, like, you only need 1 pack of 4 to make 4 wraps, and then you would just use those throughout the week. But for $11, it's like, if you want to make wraps, get the trays. It's such a good investment. Plus, you can use the trays for so many other things. Yeah. Like, you can put burgers on them, or the beef jerky from my mom's book, or
fruit
leather. Yeah, you can use the trays for so much more than just the wraps. But the thing is with the wraps, yes, you can go all the way to the edge. If you follow my video and you watch like how I do them and you follow the recipe, your wraps aren't going to curl up like most do. They're good. If you watch my video, yeah,
mine did not curl up.
Yeah, let's go see.
Should we go into the kitchen while I'm walking in there? Oh, I can't get up on this side. Sorry, I gotta go this way. While I'm getting in here, someone had a question of what's the best brand of miso, and my opinion, and you can give your opinion next, is that there's really, like, when most of the time when you go to the store, there's only one brand. That's the only choice you get. But I go to the Asian market here in Las Vegas. Okay, my tripod is really big. I go into the Asian market here in Las Vegas and I get organic only.
Yeah, because we get the organic low sodium from International. Yeah, it's the best. Or people could also get chickpea miso. Yeah, from Miso Master.
Oh, yeah.
They carry that one.
Okay. All right. So just setting this down so we can see. These are my wraps. And you can see that they did not roll on the edges
Look
at
at
all.
that.
Mine are not as polished as Lissa's on the edges, but
yeah, that's the whole point.
Same.
The whole point is they'll taste the same. I love how they fit in that bag perfectly.
Yeah, IKEA for the win.
So it's so awesome that you made the wraps. You made them. You're ready. Oh, Teams Noom is asking the size of that Ziploc bag. The size of your bag.
What's that? Yeah, the size of the. I know what size it is?
Someone
Is that what you're
in the
asking?
chat.
Oh. All right, so this is a 6-liter, 6-quart bag.
Nice.
The larger
Yeah,
one.
that one might not fit the 14 by 14 because your trays are a little smaller than mine. Yeah, so
my
it
trays
won't
are smaller,
fit my trays, but if you have small trays like Angelica, then they'll fit in those perfectly.
And I would show you the trays, but they're in the dishwasher right now, so.
I'm glad you made those wraps and you have lunch today. That's awesome.
I know, and I'm going to get lettuces from my garden and put those in there. And I have a little bit of cherry tomatoes left. And I always have fermented food on hand, so I might put some kimchi in there. And I have some, I don't have any like homemade cashew sauce or anything, so I may make a tahini sauce, or I have some Miyoko's mozzarella.
That'd be really good in a wrap.
So I might.
I think that's the cool thing about hand salads is that you can mix and match. You can fill it with whatever you want. You can make any sauce you want. Yes, I have like the matching filling and the matching sauce that go with each wrapper, but you don't have to follow that if you don't want to. You can make. The cool thing about the bundle, though, is if people go to the link in your bio and buy the bundle, they get my wraps book, but they get so many other books. Like you could technically make one of my wraps and put Enzyme's Ethiopian Burberry burger in the wrap with my mom's chutney and then a dressing from someone else. And you could have like multiple stuff.
Have you logged into Chef Yin's course? We will never be able to watch all that. There is no way. He has so much content.
I know it's worth $85.
It is. I'd say it's probably worth more, but not only that. I was like shocked at how much content she has created. Like just in general, like the woman is a machine. She doesn't look old enough to have had that many courses created. Like. Oh my God.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah, that's a cool thing too. Like there are so many things in the bundle and people really put a lot of work into like your course, right? Like a yin yoga for beginners. And I think people don't really realize, and Nate talks about this all the time. He's like, when I first started doing yin yoga, I thought, you're just laying there in a pose or whatever. And I'm like, it's so much more than that. And then when we did yin yoga for the first time with him, he was like that. It's so challenging because you're not like, it's all here. And like trying to like meditate and be still, like, because your course is called Finding Stillness, right? So,
yeah. So, someone just said 50, no way. Well, thank you. I am actually 48, but different. But before I talk about yin yoga, if Lissa could just go.
Why is the camera?
Oh. Okay, that's better. All right. Oh, now we're clean. Now it was a little dirty. Okay. So my contribution to the bundle, which you can get at the link in my profile, or you can go to bit.ly/chooseyoga. And it's $50 for 40 ebooks and courses from a bunch of different contributors. Lissa's a contributor. I'm a contributor. Lissa's contribution is hand salads, which
yes, you did. You made up that name.
When I was like, this looks like a hand salad. And then it became a thing. And then at first it was a joke. And then Lissa took it seriously. And now there's a book on it. So I also made a course called Finding Stillness with Yin Yoga. And so Yin Yoga works on, so someone asked, is my course a good place for newbies to regain flexibility? Okay, so that is a good question. And let us dive into Yin Yoga. All right, the course is going to cover some of what we're going to talk about today. So it'll be a little bit repetitive in that way, but there's a lot in the course about what Yin Yoga truly is. So people think that Yin Yoga is about releasing your muscles, but it actually couldn't be further from the truth. Yin Yoga is focused on the connective tissues, your ligaments, your fascia, particularly your fascia, and your joints and your bones. So our fascia is like a web that goes around every part of our body. A fascia is actually, I didn't realize at the time, but fascia is the reason why I don't, a big reason why I don't eat meat anymore. I want to hear this. Because when I first saw it, when I was like 11 years old, and I was like, what is that? I didn't know. It's the grizzly parts. Oh. Well, I became a vegetarian when I was 11 years old because I was like literally just so grossed out by meat. Like I was like, how do you eat this? This is like cannibalism to me. This is like cannibalism. I can't with that. So I grew up on a farm. Somebody said, thanks, Mom, for raising me raw. That was really nice of your mom. But I grew up on a hog farm. And so I was ostracized by my family. But so Yin Yoga works with the connective tissues and particularly with the fascia. So fascia wraps around everything in our body. So there's a big fascia all around all of our body, and it works in a spiral. So if you're aware of like the concept of spirals throughout the universe, our fascia is like our spiral within us. And then each muscle is then wrapped in its own fascia. And then within fascia, like inside of the muscle, there's still like fascia in the muscle. So everything is like really webbed and connected with this fascia. So oftentimes when we say, what can I do to get flexibility? What we're actually talking about is how can I release the fascia, right? So 30% of our flexibility actually has to do with fascia and not with muscle. So it's the tension in our fascia. So Yin Yoga works on the fascia. The way in which it does this is by long holds. So we hold postures for sometimes 10 to 20 minutes. For many people, it's difficult to start just sitting in one spot that long. So you'll start with 1 minute and move up to 11 minutes and then maybe even longer. Every posture has a counter posture. So every time we do one pose, we want to release it with another pose. So oftentimes that's just like windshield wipers, which looks a little bit like this. This is a windshield wiper, right? And that just helps us to get ready for the next pose. So every time we do a pose, like say we're doing just a forward fold, which we call caterpillar in Yin Yoga. And this is in my course. All the names of the poses is in my course, and the different poses that are in Yin Yoga, that's in the course. You get that with the bundle. And we want to release so that we can get ready for the next posture. It kind of just like reawakens the body and gets us ready to move into the next pose. Now, another thing when we're talking about flexibility in the body, there's a concept called tension and compression. So the reason why you might not be able to get in a pose has a lot more to do with tension and compression than it does with muscle flexibility, right? So we now know that really what we think is flexibility has a lot to do with the fascia, the connective web that holds our muscles together. But then we have this tension and compression. Okay, so tension is muscle tension. So when I'm doing, okay, for instance, I'm going to need to get this further away. All right. Oh, all right. Let's say I'm doing this pose here, which is Baddha Konasana, right? Get in the middle of the camera. So for me, you know, I can bring my knees pretty far down, all right? And I'm still feeling it in my inner thighs here, all right? So that's tension. The second that I feel it back here, where like, say my knees were actually here, but I feel it behind the leg, that's bone compression. So that is, sorry, I hurt my knee, so I'm having a hard time. So that is bone compression. So when bone hits bone, what are you going to do? You're going to cut your bone? You're going to cut your bone out? No, you can't do that. So when bone hits bone, now we have a thing called compression. And in which case, there's no amount of muscle flexibility or pressing down or sitting in a pose longer or any of that that's going to make my knees come further down, because the bones are compressing against each other. Now, bone compression is actually healthy. A little bit of bones pressing together is healthy because in between where our bones meet, we have synovial fluid, we have ligaments, we have fascia, right? And all these different tissues are working together. So when they're being compressed together, it's actually helping them to grow. So if I do this, now I feel this here, that's bone compression, right? But a little bit of this is actually good for my wrist. It's actually good for me. And sometimes you might feel like I do this, I get bony compression, but I also get some tension. So a little bit of, like, it helps with the tension to be released a little bit, but it's not, no matter how much I release this tension, I'm never going to be able to get past that bone compression. So that's why when we're talking about yoga and you see all these people online doing these very fancy yoga poses and they're flexible, oftentimes, particularly with women, and sometimes with men, it depends on their history. Oftentimes, what has happened is that when the person was a child, they did gymnastics or they did dance. I find that dance is very, very common in these very flexible people. And what has happened is that over time, their body, their bone structure has actually been changed as a child. So doing these gymnastics and these dance moves has manipulated the way in which their bones grew, which makes them more flexible. But it's not flexibility, it's bone structure. And that's the thing I think people really don't understand, is that you can't get flexible to the level that someone else is necessarily. If the reason why you're not getting deeper into a posture is compression, that's bone hitting bone, then that's just the way you're made. And it's wildly different person to person, wildly different. In particular, we typically see men who are very inflexible, but really it's bony structure. It's the way in which their bones are structured. For instance, my partner, Paul, he has a hard time keeping his legs straight in downward facing dog. And for him, it's actually bone compression versus muscle tension. And so when we're working with people, it could also be shoulders. It could be shoulder compression, because if he can't get this rotation around, there's a little thing here called the acromion process. And if we can't get the rotation around that, then we're always going to have kind of like a bent arm in our downward facing dog pose because of the bones. And so we see all these influencers on, and I'm going to, after we're going on vacation. And so after my vacation, I'm going to be hitting it really hard with a lot of extra videos for everyone. So definitely hit the follow button if you want to see some of those. But I'm going to go into a whole series on tension and compression because, and maybe do some duets with other people's content, because I see these and they just don't know. I see a lot of young people on Instagram teaching yoga, and they're saying things like, well, this is how you get more flexible, or this is how you lose weight with yoga, or this is how you can do what I do, whatever it would. But that's not, if your bone compression is such that you can't manipulate your body to go into an advanced posture, then there's no amount of exercise that's going to make that happen. There's no amount of exercise that's going to make that happen. So what we want to do is learn our own bodies. And that's the beauty of yin yoga. It teaches us, where is our points of compression? Where are we having bony compression versus flexibility? Can I manipulate my fascia in order to release more so that I can go into maybe deeper in a posture and explore that posture deeper? Now, someone asked, like, what's a general path to be able to do a fancy pose? Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. Is that we want to ask ourselves why. Why do we want to do the fancy?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many people want to do the fancy poses without realizing what the point of yoga actually is. So can you dive into that? Like, right. Why are we trying to do that? And we're losing focus of what yoga actually is.
Right. So yoga, so I'm glad that you brought that up. So yoga is an 8-limbed path, all right? There are 8 steps to the achievement of yoga. And at the end of these 8 steps, the 8th step, or what we call limb, anga, it's called Ashtanga yoga. Ashta means 8, anga means limb, yoga means union. So it's the union of these 8 limbs. The 8th limb is samadhi. Samadhi is ultimate consciousness or enlightenment, okay? So there are 7 levels of samadhi, of enlightenment. And this is in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. You can get the book at the link in my profile if you're interested in learning more about this. The first level of samadhi, all of us can reach this level of enlightenment. And it's where we understand that everything that's happening in the world is a conception of our mind. It's how our mind is projecting the world to be, but it's actually not reality. Because in yogic philosophy, we are what's called Purusha. Purusha is our true self. It's who we truly are before anything ever happened to us, before we went through any difficulties. It is the soul that is inside of us. It's not even our body. It's this prana, this life force energy that moves through us. That is our Purusha, okay? And Prakriti is everything outside. That's nature. That's everything outside of the Purusha, the true self, is the Prakriti, or nature. And all the things that are happening with the Prakriti are never affecting the Purusha. Bless you. And they just serve to create what we call chitta vrittis, or modifications of the mind. So when we see these things happening around us, we think that they're a reality, but actually it's just the mind thinking it's a reality. Like, how many times Have you thought something was happening that was really just your thoughts? Just the way that you thought, not a reality. We have conceptions of people, all of us here, we have because we're going to use this as an example, we have a conception of what we think Lissa is like. Every single one, right? But only Lissa truly knows who Lissa is on the inside. She's the only one that knows who her Prusha is. Like, hit the like button there if you agree with that. And that's true for each of you. All of you are the ones who know who your true Prusha is. I don't know who you are. I don't know who Beautiful Mom E1988 is. Oh my gosh, were you born in 1988? Because that is gonna make me feel old. But that's all right. I love being old. It is a privilege to be this age. My mom lived to 61, so that would mean I would only have 13 years left, if I lived that long. So it's a privilege to live a long life. So anyhow, when we're talking about yoga, it's actually not the postures. The postures are only the third step of the 8 limbs. The postures are only step number 3. So if we're talking about, I want to really get into this advanced pose, well, why? What's it going to do for you? Great. I mean, that's great. If you want to do advanced postures, you know how to do it. Practice, practice, practice. That's it. Practice, practice, practice. Practice every day. Practice first thing in the morning. Do your yin yoga in the morning. Do your yin yoga at night. Practice every day like this. And don't do yin yoga if your muscles are warm, because we want to work with the connective tissue. We want to work with the fascia. We want to work with the ligaments. We want to work with the bones. And in order to do that, the body needs to be cool. So don't ever sign up for these hot yin classes. That is a gimmick. And it's now we're working with muscle. If we go into a hot room, we're working with muscle. We're no longer working with the connective tissues, the fascia, the ligaments, and the bones. We're working with the muscle, which is not what we want to do. So now instead of it actually being yin yoga, it's restorative yoga. And a lot of people don't know that, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. You're not going to
not going to get the real benefit for the reason for doing it.
Right. The reason for doing yin is to work with the connective tissues. So if we're in a warm room, we want it to actually be cool. So it should be cool enough that you probably want to wear socks.
Yeah. I like yin yoga too. I use a lot of blankets, because you do feel cooler when you do yin yoga. I feel sometimes if it's not, if I don't have a hoodie or socks on or whatever, I do get colder when I do yin.
Yes. Should feel that way. If you're doing yin yoga effectively, it should be a little cool. You might want a jacket. Now, I want to get back to the 8 limbs of yoga, but someone, Leandra, or is it Castle Andra? She said no to all hot yoga or just no to yin yoga. So no to hot yin yoga, because that's really just restorative yoga. But hot yoga depends entirely on, if I have seen people in their 40s go into hot yoga classes, having never exercised before, come out, have a heart attack in the bathroom. Someone died in this town that I live in at a major yoga studio here. And so if you're not already healthy and you're not already very physically fit, hot yoga puts strain on the heart, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is if you can have heat exhaustion and die if you're not physically
you're
ready
not hydrated,
the work
you're eating improperly. There's so many things that happen that we need to make sure that drink your water. You have to be hydrated, and most people are chronically dehydrated. So they're going in to a hot yoga and they're exercising, they're putting their body under this extreme challenge, which, like you said, can be good if you aren't compromised, I guess.
Right, which is fine. I'm not a fan. I don't really like hot yoga, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. I like Ashtanga yoga. You might not like Ashtanga because it's repetitive. It's doing the same thing over and over every day. And someone, one of my teachers, someone who's taught for me for many years, and she used to be a student of mine, she actually said the other day, she was teaching an inversions class for my teacher training for me, and she was talking about she stopped doing Ashtanga because Ashtanga was about getting into the pose, not knowing the self. And I was like, wow, I never thought about it, but it's true.
Interesting.
Yeah. If in that, that's something too, someone had asked about, how do I get into an advanced posture? And if you really want to enhance your physical practice, Ashtanga is the way. Ashtanga is the way. Forget about hot yoga. Do the Ashtanga primary series every single morning, Mysore style. DM me any resources on that, because or just Kino McGregor is a great resource. She has something called Stars. She's got a lot of videos on YouTube, but just type in Ashtanga yoga. It'll come up. Also, our friend Abby has Ashtanga for Dummies. She has a course, Ashtanga Yoga for Dummies, and that will help you with that. Inside of the bundle, though, you're going to get my yin yoga course. So it's going to take you through the steps of yin yoga, the things that I just talked about, tension and compression, the ideas of doing it in a cooler room, working on the connective tissue and the different postures that are in yin yoga. And then there's going to be some yin yoga practices for you to do that I have taught. Now, the 8 limbs of yoga, and this is something that's really important to think about, is that the first limb of the 8 limbs is these yamas and niyamas. Okay, so the yamas are the first limb. The second limb is the niyamas.
Mom.
Thank you. Oh, it's your mom. Yay, Mom. I'm excited for you to do my yin yoga class too. So the yamas and the niyamas, the very first yama. So the very first step of yoga is something that we call ahimsa. And ahimsa is nonviolence. As interpreted by every sacred yogic text, ahimsa always means vegetarianism. Always. Now, in India, cows are considered sacred. And so that's why they eat dairy and believe that they're still practicing ahimsa. Now, I've traveled to India. I would not recommend eating dairy in India. It's gross. Paul still has nightmares about the time that he found a chunk in his coffee. He's laughing in the hallway.
But also, I don't think people realize that, like, a cow has to be pregnant to make milk. That's just how biology is. You have to be pregnant to make milk for your baby. And we're taking that milk away from a baby cow, which isn't very ahimsa.
Oh, well, here's the thing. We're not even taking it away from the baby cow.
Yeah.
They're constantly keeping these cows in a lactated state so that they keep making milk for us. And they take the baby calves away and they make them into veal. And I can't talk about it right now because I got a day ahead of me and I don't need to be upset.
Needless to say, vegan.
But here's the thing, okay, is that for me, dairy is very mucus creating. So if I eat dairy, like if I accidentally eat dairy, I know right away. Because my nose just clogs immediately.
Yeah. So ahimsa, which is beautiful. I mean, that's like the first step, like beyond the poses, beyond it all, like first thing.
Well, you can't find stillness and peace in your body if you're eating the fear, pain, and suffering of animals. If your body is a graveyard, it's impossible to find stillness. So how can I meditate and find peace if I'm ingesting the adrenaline, if I'm ingesting the fear hormones, that went into a body? Like, I was just thinking about this the other day. I was in an accident that I really can't talk about, but it was a traumatic accident, and I went into shock, and I was having a really hard time, like, making thoughts. Now, imagine you're an animal and you're at the slaughterhouse and you're in that level of shock and fear and pain, and then they cut them up and then they feed us that. And then those things go into our body, and that becomes your makeup. You know, that becomes who you are. Kayla Nicole Ministry says yoga is demonic. Let me talk to you about that for a minute, Kayla. Okay, so back before the Hatha Yoga Pradipika was written, there was a sect of people who used yoga for dark magic. That has not been done for thousands of years. The 8 limbs of yoga, the yoga of Patanjali, the yoga of the Bhagavad Gita. The yoga of the Bhagavad Gita is Hinduism. So if you are saying that yoga is demonic, you're saying Hinduism is demonic. I think that was a little extreme. That's a little bit much for the largest religion on the planet. So I don't think that that's true. But there was an aspect to that a very long time ago. Now, if we talk about Christianity and some of the awful things that the Vatican has done over the years, and some of the terrible, I mean, I grew up in the Catholic Church, so I'm well acquainted with that. So I think that all religions and all like major thought processes have some kind of dark history to them. That's a part of it. Yoga isn't exempt from that, but yoga is not a religion. It's a philosophy and a way of life. I've been doing yoga now for almost 40 years, and I've been practicing it for about 40 years. I've been teaching yoga for about 20 years. I would say that I'm a scholar of yoga, and I have studied it extensively. I have well over 10,000 hours of experience teaching yoga. I've traveled all over the world, including to India, to practice yoga and taught yoga all over. I even taught yoga in Africa at the Africa Yoga Project. So I think that what we do in yoga today is nowhere near what was done centuries ago. So that would be like saying Christianity is demonic because of what it was years ago, or, you know, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So, you know, we're each entitled to our own opinions and beliefs, but my experience with yoga, and as someone who has studied yoga in depth and studied Christianity in depth, I'm Sagittarius, so I love theology and religion, and I love studying those things, and I have a lot of knowledge base in that, so we could go toe to toe for a while on that.
People don't really realize what because it's the intention of why you're doing whatever you're doing, or why you believe what you believe, and going into something with a dark intention obviously is going to be dark, right? So
to make it dark now, because that's not what the 8 limbs are. I mean, the first limb is a hymns on nonviolence. So if you think that nonviolence is demonic, I mean, I don't get that. All right, that's enough for that topic. I want to talk about yin yoga though, because yin yoga was actually created by a man named Paul Grilly, who's from Montana. So it's a newer style of yoga, and it was created in the 90s, maybe the 80s. He was like developing the ideas, and then it became very popular in the early 2000s. And it's very focused on, it's a very anatomically focused yoga that's really focused on the body and Chinese medicine, the meridians. And the meridians are these energy centers that run through our body. And each one of the different yin yoga postures taps into a different meridian, and releasing and allowing that meridian to reach its fullest potential and to flow with what we call chi. So in the yin yoga beginner's yin yoga course that you're going to get in the bundle, that you can get in the link in my profile or by going to bit.ly/choose yoga, in that beginner's yin yoga class, I'm going to talk a little bit about chi. But if you really want deep dive, if you really want to learn about the meridians and how to sequence a yin class and all of that, I do have a 50-hour online yin yoga training that I don't really advertise a lot, because I focus on just like doing my teacher trainings, because I have a 200-hour and a 300-hour yoga teacher training. But if you're interested in that, I can send you the link. You just send me a DM. But the yin yoga course in the bundle is going to give you the basics of yin and teach you how to do yin yoga and how to create your own home practice and the things to look for. So like we talked about, yoga is a way of living. It works with any religion. In the yamas and the niyamas, it talks about something called Ishvara Pranidhana. So all these words that I'm using are just Sanskrit language. They're not fancy. It's just like when I was in France, I lived in France for a little bit, and y'all know the TGV. I was like, I'm going to ride the TGV. Like the TGV, like it's like a big deal, right? Well, you know what that means? It means super fast train in French. That's it, you guys. Like these words, like the words that I'm using, they're just Sanskrit. It's a language. It's an origin language. It actually comes before Latin. And so some Latin words are origined from Sanskrit. So again, some of the words that we're using from the Vatican, from Catholicism, come actually from ancient Sanskrit, which is the language of yoga. So Ishvara Pranidhana is one of the niyamas, and it means surrender to God. But when it talks about surrender to God, it talks about your incarnation of God. It doesn't have to be a Hindu God. It doesn't have to be Krishna, right? It doesn't have to be Krishna. It can be Jesus. It can be Muhammad. It can be whoever it is that, Moses, if you're Jewish, like whoever it is that you believe God to be. Maybe it's the Force. Maybe you're a star.
Yesterday, may the Fourth be with you.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, today is May 5th.
It's Revenge of the
So
5th.
on May 5th, well, it's actually on May 5th is the day that I opened my first yoga studio. Yeah, many, over 10 years ago. And I forgot, this is a big day for me. 5 is my lucky number, and that's why I chose this day. Not knowing that it was also Cinco de Mayo. So that's kind of haunted me.
And Revenge of the 5th.
So anyhow, so the other things in the yamas and the niyamas are cleanliness, right? So before we start our yoga practice, we want to be clean. We want to keep our space clean. Cleanliness helps. Like I've noticed that the cleaner I keep my area, the easier it is to work. My thoughts flow easier. I just try to declutter. Aparigraha, non-hoarding, is another one of them. Self-study, reading texts that help you to be better is part of yoga. So when we read The Mountain Is You, which is just actually like always a good reread, that is part of doing yoga, is doing these things, is reading these things. And that's all part of the bigger process of yoga. Yoga isn't just the poses. It's so much more. It's so much more.
The difference between
Fruity
yoga
raw
and Pilates.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I saw that in there and I wanted to talk about that. Now listen, I have
a live at 11.
So
really quick.
Yeah. So anyhow, because I teach online yoga teacher training and I teach it one-on-one. So everyone that joins my teacher training, I meet with them on Zoom once a week, just me and them individually. And they go through the content online and then they meet with me for an hour to an hour and a half. We go over everything they learned. We go over their practicums. I help them get better at teaching. And I have 100% graduation rate, which is insane. And people would always tell me, if you're going to do an online course, only 10% of the people are going to graduate. And that's just how it is. And I was like, I don't want that. So I have 100% graduation rate because the big thing about my course is accountability, right? Like I'm always there for you. And there's a community, there's a Discord community where people can chat and meet other people in the training and ask me questions during the week. And there's a lot of support. It's an incredible training. If you're thinking about learning more about yoga, or you want to become a certified yoga teacher, or you're already one, you want to get like your next level, your 300-hour, definitely check out my online yoga teacher training and book a 15-minute Zoom with me so we can see if it's a good fit for you. and if you want to see like something that I've done and you know, some of my work, get the bundle, bit.ly/choose yoga, $50. You get my yin yoga course that's exclusive to this bundle. You can't get it anywhere else. The only other yin yoga course I sell is my 50-hour course. I do not sell the beginner's yin yoga course. So if you want that, definitely get this bundle. So the difference between Pilates and yoga. So yoga as a philosophy is thousands of years old. It started with the Ramayana, with the Mahabharata, and these are ancient Indian Hindu texts that talk about the different gods of India and how they came to happen. And within that, the Bhagavad Gita, which is the story of Arjuna, and Arjuna is a warrior who goes through a yogic journey. In this whole book, there's never one mention of poses. Poses come into play in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, where there's 15 different poses, and these poses are intended to get you to a state where you can relax and then meditate. And then after that, in the early 1900s, a man named Krishnamacharya started to create yoga asana. These asana means poses. So he created these yoga poses, and he was inspired by the gymnastics of Europe, because at that time India was occupied by England and colonialism was a thing there, and people would teach yoga as performance in order to make money. Because having traveled in India extensively, one thing that Indian people are really good at is they're like people from Miami, you know, they're always coming up with a good idea to make money. And and so that was what yoga asana that we do today, all the advanced postures we do, that's how it started. It is an offshoot of European gymnastics, and it was Indian people using that, particularly young Indian men using that to make money, which is great. Pilates was created by a man named Joseph Pilates during World War II, and he created it to help men who were coming back from the war rehabilitate and gain more movement within their body and get back what they'd lost during the war. So that's how Pilates was created differently than yoga. Joseph Pilates actually created these poses without never doing yoga. They're not like, they're totally, it's kind of weird because some of the postures seem somewhat similar, but they're not. He created them totally different from when Krishnamacharya created these yoga poses. And the main difference between Pilates and yoga is the breath. In yoga, we only breathe in and out through the nose because it lowers the flight or fight response and helps us to calm our nervous system so that we are much more peaceful and calm. And in Pilates, it's more athletic based. So you'll see a lot of breathing in and out through the mouth to create a certain sensation within the body. Yoga is more mind-based, Pilates is more body-based. But yoga was created for performance art, really, and Pilates was created for rehabilitation. So a lot of people say like, oh, I want to do yoga to rehabilitate. Now, first of all, yin yoga injury is contraindicated. So if you have injury, you're not supposed to be practicing yin yoga. You should be practicing restorative yoga, which is an Iyengarite yoga. And then now I did have plantar fasciitis, and I did Ashtanga yoga, and that relieved my plantar fasciitis. But I wouldn't recommend Ashtanga for injury because it's probably one of the most physically demanding, if not the most physically demanding styles of yoga, followed by hot yoga, Bikram style. And but that's the only reason Bikram is difficult is because the room is hot. The postures that they do are actually very simple, and if you did them in a cool room, you wouldn't be challenged in any way whatsoever, and there's no flow to it. So it just, this is my client that I have in 8 minutes, Michelina. Hello, hi Michelina. Oh, actually we have 4 minutes, and then we're on together. She's like, what are you doing? Why are you not with me? Anyhow, I will be with you, woman. I will be there. She's going to be doing arm balances and inversions as her practicum today, so that's very exciting. Anyhow, So that's basically the main difference between Pilates and yoga. One thing that I think is really, I know, girl, I want to see you next. So one thing, the other thing I think is really fascinating about Pilates and yoga is that they were both created by men for men. And now they're both done by women majority wise.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. We're going to be live again, I think, on Monday too, so we can expand on this. So you guys join in again for like part 2, where we'll expand more. We'll answer more of your questions about yoga and yin yoga and hand salads. But go grab the bundle, bit.ly/chooseyoga, all lowercase, and get Angelica's yin yoga course inside the bundle. 40 brand new contributions, all yours for $50.
Yeah, I feel like I should upload this to my podcast because
I'm
it's
going to
a really good conversation. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that conversation because I spoke mostly.
That's what I wanted. I wanted to hear more. I learned stuff, so it's good.
I did have a lot of fun, though. I love talking about yoga. You know, it's really interesting. I hired Ted Carr to teach me how to make online courses, and Lissa came as a bonus. And she taught me about social media. And one of the things that I totally lost my thought. Dang, what were we talking about?
I don't know. Were you going to say something about value and talking about your passion?
Oh, when I first signed up, I was going to make vegan ebooks. I was like, I make ebooks about veganism. And Ted was like, why aren't you doing something with yoga? You've been teaching yoga for 20 years. Like, that's weird. Because I was like, I'm done with yoga. I'm not doing it anymore. And what I realized was that, like, honestly, I was just done with owning a yoga studio. I absolutely love working with my clients online. I love doing online yoga teacher training. I do online yoga teacher training unlike anyone else. I broke all the rules. Everyone told me not to do it this way, and I still do. I meet with people one-on-one. I put a lot of work and effort into every single person that I work with. I'm very much about my students succeeding. Like, that's really what I want, and I have a 100% graduation rate. Everyone was like, no, you'll never get everyone, just ignore it. If they don't finish, you don't have to feel guilty. And I was like, no, I don't want that. I want people to take my course and actually finish. So I broke all the molds. But anyhow, that's how I got to know Lissa, is that she trained me to do social media. And then that was many years ago.
And now you live a mile away, and we have monthly game nights and so much fun.
I know. Now we hang out. And all right.
Yes.
Well,
I have a live in a half an hour, so it's a good day.
All right. I'm going to say this. If any of you are joining, I can watch it from the beginning. Have a great day.